Welcome all, it's Gerald Clark on December 26, 2018, and I have the honor to be joined with my wife, Krista, and with Betty, and I'm going to have them do their own introductions to their channels. I'm doing this on behalf of Seven Planet Broadcasting, and those of you that are premium subscribers, have access to this. So, Krista, why don't you introduce Artistic Vegan?
Sure, I'm Christa Clark with artisticvegan.com, and you can find out all the information there.
Oh, go ahead, Betty. Tell us about you.
I'm Betty Steele, and I'm from Astrology with Betty, astrologywithbetty.com. I'm a psychic astrologer, and you can find me at astrologywithbetty.com.
Okay. I know some of you know that we've connected before with Betty. What I want to say today is we're doing something a little different because we all cross paths on this particular crazy work we call structural integration. And for those of you that don't know what it has to do with aligning your body, relating your body to the gravity field. And we're not talking about posturing, are we, Betty?
No.
No. Okay. Oh, with that said, we're going to kind of have Betty talk about, she recently went through and had what's called a standard Rolf 10 series. This is the introduction to the work. It doesn't stop there, but for most people, a Rolf 10 series of structural integration using the Ida-Rolf method, and I think maybe you experienced that, right?
Yes.
Did you? Okay. Using that method, most people initially are very surprised to find that there's this concept of gravity and you can actually feel it through your body. And ultimately, as the end result, the practitioner stirs up the client just enough, assuming that the body is a malleable plastic, which it is, just enough, it connects with the gravity field, then gravity from that point on, and it could be a lifetime. Some people never get another 10 series. They only need one. It depends on the degree of things that have happened to your body and how far along you are and how many lumps on top of lumps you have. But the end result is gravity is a therapist. So the structural integrator is really a facilitator to finding that relationship with gravity. So that's what we're going to talk about today. It's a profound experience. You cannot explain it to somebody. Betty's going to explain it to us today. So why don't you give us an intro, how you got on this path, and then the involvement with the Gravity Body Academy and how this led to what you're doing.
All right. Well, thank you. It's so great to be with you guys. And well, how I got on this path, it's been just an incredible journey. I started doing the Kundalini yoga, and then I got Anana in my head. I got that message, which led me to find you, Gerald. And that's when I found your videos, and that's when I was able, when we connected the first time. And then Krista and I became friendly and close, and we started doing videos and talking, and then through you guys, I was introduced to the structural integration, to the Rolfing. And so, of course, I respect and admire both of you, so I paid a lot of attention to it and started researching it. And then what happened was...
Can I ask something real quick? Wasn't there a change in your diet between you getting the structure work? So you were messing around with your diet a little bit, weren't you?
Yes, well, I definitely stopped drinking alcohol. You know, once in a while I'll have a glass of wine, but not like I used to drink. I also, I'm off of chicken, I used to eat chicken, and, you know, I do eat some fish still. Like yesterday I had some shrimp, but I've been more drawn to just like, and actually too, I'm not even eating a lot. A lot of times I'm not even hungry. It's weird. Like I feel like I eat a lot of carrots and hummus and stuff like that, and veggie burgers. But so yes, so there's definitely been a difference in my appetites on a lot of levels.
Okay. Did that come from you interacting with Krista and what she's doing, or because I'm trying to set up for what happened to you before versus what happened with the structure work, because I think one led to the other, but it's hard to distinguish those when you're in that process.
Yeah, you know, I don't know, I guess. I mean, absolutely, Krista's an amazing influence, and all of her wonderful, you know, being exposed to her recipes definitely is an inspiration. It gives me ideas of what to do, so that definitely helped. But I don't know, this journey started, I did the Kundalini yoga. Well, I'll share a little bit. I was in a relationship for a very long time, and it ended recently, a couple of months ago, and that's when I started doing the structural integration. But I believe that it started ending kind of when I did the Kundalini yoga, and my vibration started to raise, and I just started to see things differently and feel differently, and so
you feel
then
like you had a shift as a result of the Kundalini yoga?
Absolutely, absolutely, I did, and I started getting messages and downloads, and my work is improved when I do readings. It's off the charts. It's different than it ever was. I mean, it was always good, but now, I mean, I'm even like seeing ghosts and seeing things and hearing, you know, it's getting crazy, you know, and I don't think much about it. I allow it to happen, and I get out of my own way. I just speak. I used to say to myself, you can't say that to people, and I just say whatever comes in now. I get out of the way. I feel like this is bigger than me, and I just let it happen instead of my ego being involved. So with the structural integration, this has really, there was a really cathartic event that happened, which kind of lined up with some personal things that were happening in my life. And it took me to like a moment of surrender. I had gone through like a real devastating kind of blow, like a real ego blow. And I didn't sleep for a couple of days. I didn't eat. You know, I couldn't pull it together. I was really upset. And I just kind of threw myself on the ground one day. And I had clients coming, and I was like, I can't do this. It was like my ego died. It was like the ego death. And
Was this before you structure work or after?
No, it was in the middle. It was in the middle.
Oh, so you're like session number 5 or 4,
maybe
something like that?
Maybe 6, 7, around maybe.
Oh, so normally, just so people know, about the 4th session, it starts stirring up your deep core. And generally, some deep emotional stuff could possibly come up by then. And you might start feeling gravity through the top of your head and all that.
I did.
So you then and if you stop between 4 and 5, it can be very amplified, the effect. But if you got to 6 or so and you were experiencing this is kind of the norm, okay, just so you know.
Well, geez, they should put a warning label on this stuff.
What should it say? And then you ask.
I don't know, handle with care. I don't know. But you know what? I'm glad I didn't know. Honestly, I have to say that in hindsight, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Absolutely. I've been trying to work on opening my heart. And I feel like it was almost like I had a gigantic pool and I had a little Dixie cup, and I was every day taking a little bit out. This was like a boulder being dropped in, and it was, I mean, I gotta say, it was incredibly painful. It was not comfortable on any level, emotionally, mentally, physically. I felt like almost like something was being ripped out of my body. I felt like something was being ripped out of my chakras. It's the only way I can explain it. It hurt. Like it physically hurt me. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can't explain. But I can always kind of stay in control and push something down. I couldn't push this down. And then I threw myself on the ground in my room, and I just started calling out, I need help. I can't do this. I need help. You have to help me. Like, and it wasn't like, I really kind of was like fresh about it. I was screaming a little bit. And I got
Were you in pain? Were you uncomfortable, or is it just stirred up emotion?
I was upset. I was very devastated.
But it wasn't coming from were you feeling a physical pain in transition, or did you just have the emotion that welled up in your throat?
It was everything.
Oh.
It was all of it. All of it. It was a couple of days building. And then I'm sorry?
Were you getting changes in your body that you could connect with those emotions or not at that point?
Well, I definitely felt changes in my body. I mean, in the first couple of sessions, when she did my leg, I had a cesarean. When I gave birth to my daughter, I had a cesarean section. And something happened where she said it was very common because it kind of hurt. She said she moved the tissue or the fascia. And the next day when I did yoga, it really hurt. And I was thinking to myself, I don't like this. This is probably not a good thing. But then it resolved itself. It was weird. And now I definitely am more flexible when I do my yoga. Certainly not as much as Christa, but I mean,
keep going.
It'll just keep going.
You just started what we call a body in transition.
Yeah.
Well, have you finished your 10th session, or you got that left to go? Or
I have one left to go. My practitioner went to Madrid for Christmas, so we're doing it. Yeah, I know. I was like, so I'm going to do my next one. My final one is January 2nd.
So you mentioned that your practitioner is a woman?
Yes.
Does she look like Ida Rolf? I'm just curious.
No. no, I don't think so.
So she was one of yours, wasn't she? Didn't she come to astrology with Betty? And isn't that how you guys connected?
It was so divine. Yes, absolutely. She came as a client. I did a class, and she was a student. And then she came for a reading, and we started to speak. And I knew she did it, but it was weird because it kind of fell out of my head. And then I was researching practitioners. I don't know why I didn't think of her. And then all of a sudden, one day, it hit me like a train. And I was like, why don't I call Christina? And then she's in my town. Like, it's
how convenient.
Wow. I know, it's 3 minutes. It's like 3 minutes to go there. And so I go every Wednesday morning. I've been going every Wednesday morning. And
you're going once a week. Week. You're not doing the twice a week fast path thing.
No, and I'm glad I did it.
There are those that do that, but it's depending on how you integrate. The standard is 1 a week to allow time to integrate, but a lot of people do it faster if they can handle it.
Well, I think if I did it again, maybe I would do that. But I think this was a little wild. So I think that the weeks in between, and like I said, I'm in a major transition. So it really, I feel I needed the time. I needed the time to digest, and it couldn't have come at a better time. So and when I had that moment of surrender, I got this download. I don't know if I went out of body because it was very hard for me to understand it because it was a very raw and fragile moment in my life. So I don't really, it's hard to put into words, but I might have gone out of body a little bit because I kind of was seeing things and I was feeling things, and I have definitely had amazingly vivid dreams since then where guides are speaking to me and I'm actually having conversations with them. And the background, I always know when it's a powerful dream because the background kind of lights up. Like, and it's, I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like one time I was in like Sedona-ish area and I was driving in a car and the mountains looked like they had fire inside of them. It was like illuminating. And I was speaking with, I guess it was a guide or an angel or whatever, and they were just explaining things to me and I was asking questions. And when I woke up, I was crying, but it was like, I've been crying a lot lately, but it's not like a sad cry. It's a very like, everything touches me. Like, so my neighbor left some candy on our door for Christmas and I started crying. Like, I'm so grateful for everything. Yeah. I feel like my heart got blown open.
I found that in general, after seeing many, many clients, suddenly there's not only a personality change, but there's an emotional sensitivity that involves all your senses. Your sense of touch, light seems to just really trigger you. Water, especially certain sounds. You become more sensitive to energy, right? Because your receiver is becoming more sensitive to what's there already. And it just seems like all of a sudden it's amplified. Colors are all brighter.
Yes.
That happened to me as well.
So you mentioned you felt like the chakra change. Do you want to talk about that? Like what it felt like with your chakras, or where you feel like it was, where it began and where you are now?
Well, I guess, what I was talking about before, I feel what I think was happening, because what I got in one of the downloads was that I was with this other soul many lifetimes. And there were many, many lifetimes that I would try to save him and help him. And many, many, many lifetimes, I guess he let me down or it didn't work. And that this was the last lifetime that I said I was going to give it one more try. Wow. And so I got the information that what I was feeling was the cords being disconnected, the pulling away and the ending of the karma. Right. And, but then also too, I feel my heart more open, because when I tried to do the Kundalini yoga, I would always feel it be stuck, my back, my heart area, like I would feel like it couldn't go past it. And now I feel it. I feel it open. I know I have more to do, but I feel it coming through. And when I do the yoga, I sometimes I just breathe and my arms move. I'm not even consciously thinking, and I feel like I visualize like my wings coming out. I don't know if that sounds nuts. I don't even know anymore, but I am so on board with following. I'm going on blind faith here. I mean, sometimes I don't think about it, because if I did, I'd probably have an anxiety attack, but I just keep everything, every day, whatever I need shows up on so many levels, and the connections with people, and just everything. And I feel so grateful all of the time.
Mm-hmm. And eventually, when this gets a little bit farther along for you, what I found for me was all of a sudden, especially if you become a practitioner and learn how to do this for others,
I'd love to.
is you suddenly develop a vision that's kind of what we call, I don't know, structural sight. You can see structurally and what the being's relationship to energy is relative to their structure, because structure and energy are completely related. Okay, they're correlated. So you change your body, your receiver antenna, such that it's receiving this energy more, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, has it been there all along? Well, yeah, it has. Oh yeah, so Krista reminded me. So it was so curious to me what this energy change was that was happening to me when it started happening, that the school I went to, the Guild for Structural Integration, that was based out of Boulder, they had you write a graduation paper to talk mostly about your experience with the work. You know, they wanted to know how it affected you, right? And they didn't really pin you down on the topics too much, but I found myself wanting to know, what is this energy change happening? Why am I more sensitive to sound and water, and I feel so empathic and connected to everything? What's going on here, right? And I really wanted to know. And as an engineer, I've always been interested where energy meets matter, where the finite meets the infinite. I've always viewed energy as infinite. It's from the creator, okay? The creator of all. Whatever label you want to put on the creator of all, that's fine. But that infinite force shows up, one of which that we experience that's the strongest is gravity. You know, I mean, how many of us have been affected by gravity in accidents, falling, learning to walk? I mean, it's a real force that you can't ignore it, really. But as we age, we do ignore it for the most part. Yes. But in that equation that I wrote, I found out gravity is a very large part of your experience of human energy. And then, you know, you start talking about yoga, how it's changing your body to be more at ease in the gravity field, right? So you're having a better relationship with gravity. Well, take that to the next step. And that's what structure work does, is it goes right after those areas that are stuck in your body. So you were doing this Kundalini yoga, and you probably got it to a plateau in your energy where your higher self realized you needed the next step. Well, the next step oftentimes for people in yoga, I had lots of yoga instructors that the next step for them was getting structure work. And some of them was to learn to be a structural integrator, because it kind of coincided with what yoga is about.
Oh, totally.
There's more to it than that, than just the asanas and an easy posture. But it turns out that's a big part of having your receiver tuned to the point where you can feel gravity, because when you can, that means your energy body is starting to come on. All the other pieces of it start working. It's a phenomenal thing. And gravity from that point, if you play this game of keeping your head on top, it'll be the therapist for you for the rest of your life. It'll keep changing, and your body will keep trying to adapt to whatever that force field is that we call gravity. There are real lines and planes in the body that know what that is.
Absolutely. And I mean, from Krista said, when I heard her say in a video that how she tries to just walk in the straight line, and I do that now, and I do feel I loved that, you know, that example that you gave, because, but I think too it's something you have to experience. It's hard to explain to somebody who.
It is. Yeah, you got this funny look on your face.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, structural integration is one of those. You can't explain what food tastes like to somebody. try to explain to them what it feels like where their higher energy self is merging with the physical form, and it's like you're on the freight train to some energy experience that you can't stop. It just keeps going.
You know what I did feel? Well, in the beginning, the first couple of times, I felt my third eye open. I felt like, and I felt this before in my life, but it felt like it was just constantly vibrating and constantly opening. So that was one.
Well, that's the thing. So that's the thing, you know, with meditation and breathing and all those things, I think you can get your electrical energy body to start working, and it could depending on your structure. If you've got a really good structure, I don't care if you've done yoga or not. If you just didn't have any damage and you could align yourself in the lines and planes that are required to feel gravity through the top of your head, and you meditated, I think you can find this universal consciousness energy that's available to everyone. And there's a lot of paths to it, okay? Structural integration is not the only one. But for those of us in the West that didn't even know about yoga until just, 20 years ago, and we didn't even know we had an energy body. It's never been discussed, right? You weren't taught that in school, right?
No.
So now all of a sudden, you introduce this crazy concept where you're changing the body and having energetic experiences that are like what you do in yoga, except very accelerated. And it can be more than, if people don't integrate with that changing energies and get out of their own way, because it has to do with patterns in your body that you're holding relative to your perception of what's relaxed. We want you to be able to stand on your line and be completely relaxed, not tightening your legs, not your shoulders, not anything in your pelvis. If you can find that, that's the place where gravity is going to have the most effect on you feeling your internal core, which runs straight up and down from the top of your head, out the urogenital triangle through the bowl of your pelvis. That's where the gravity line runs through your body. And when you start feeling that, it will absolutely transform you. Because at that point, you've got a clear line where those chakras. Now, so we were talking about meditation yoga to get to there. They have no idea that some of the things that are going on with their structure could be impeding their energy. Mm-hmm. What you don't know that you don't know is what usually holds you back too. Because if you knew about it, you'd try to do something. Well, you don't know that you don't know because the fascia that's asleep in your body that's been damaged, probably even since birth, it's under the control of the autonomic nervous system. And you have no control over it. It's like breathing. It's automatic, unless you're doing, Kriya yoga or intentionally playing with your breath. But all of that stuff and I even look at yogis in some of the videos online. They got as far as they got. But if you do what you're doing and you align your antenna, there's no telling how far you can go, okay? Because your body won't be a limitation to the full experience of that energy that's possible.
I wanted to ask you, do you think that this kind of wakes up our DNA? And because I feel like it's taken me really far out of my lower nature. Like, I feel like I don't feel addictions as much. And I feel like I feel elevated in a way. And I was wondering about that with the DNA.
Well, my teacher used to talk, let's separate the elevated feeling from energy interactions with DNA, okay? Because that elevated feeling you're talking about, one of the examples my teacher used to give was, you see somebody, and he used to give the example of a crooked used car salesman. And he was making a symbolic analogy to the guy actually having a distorted posture that wasn't, that matched the energy. And he said, start noticing that if that isn't the case, because usually what's happening is the experience in the body of their integration with the outside energy and their internal energy, that disparity usually shows up as pain in the body, okay? Musculoskeletal deviations, subluxations, just pain. Structural asymmetries cause pain. Well, that pain comes out in the personality. So they're usually projecting out this pain they're experiencing internally. And so he goes, but now notice somebody who's got an upright posture, who's probably got a different personality to go with that. Which one would you buy a car from? You're more trusting of somebody because of structure and symmetry. And this is what we use to determine beauty, right? We look at something and go, okay, is there planar symmetry on the face and all that? Because they use algorithms to determine this in the beauty industry, right? Well, a lot of this has to do with structural issues. Okay, so structure is function, is energy. So what I'm saying is, if you go change that structure so that it can align in the gravity field, somehow, some way, as those chakras start activating and that energy travels further and is unimpeded, your behavior will change too, and you won't really know why. This is the personality change that Ida Rolf identified. And it'll become more upright. It'll become more coincident with the higher level chakras. And people are going to perceive you as possibly being self-righteous. You know, like, oh, I just encountered her and more. I just felt like I went to church. Right. Something changes. No, seriously, your energy will keep going to the place where you're not attracted to the external things that coincide with lower chakra behavior.
I agree. You know what I feel? I also, every day after I say, how may I serve? I feel that I'm being called to let go of all this so I can hold space for my clients. And that's what, I love it. It's very exciting. I feel that, you know, the more, what?
Oh, we got chilly in here.
Oh.
You'll be right.
I feel that I've just been able to be closer to my clients because of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now when you had yours, you said that you had a little bit of an anxiety. Was that around the 4th or 5th time too? Was that around the same? Was that like an emotional?
Like 8 years ago. It was a lot of years ago. I don't remember exactly which session it was, but it was somewhere along the way in the journey that, yeah, all of a sudden I had like a similar, like, just kind of an anxiety and kind of a, it was 8 years ago, so it's kind of a hard memory now, but it was just a lot of emotion and a lot of unknown feelings and energies, and not really sure how to handle it. And I didn't know if it was my Kundalini awakening or if it was just, you know, some old energetic or pattern that was coming out that caused this change. But yeah, and then years later I did have one of those ego things where I got rid of all my clothes, all my makeup, everything, and anything that was attached to ego. And then slowly you build it back up and you're like, well, you know, you can have part of yourself, but
I don't want to get rid of my makeup.
No, I don't recommend it. No.
I don't have to give it to my daughter.
Yeah. So it does though. You do feel the energy change, and yeah. I mean, it makes sense that if you were to raise your energy from a lower level, that you would go from concerns about addictions or different lower things to having it just be more easier as you enter a higher level of energy. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I do. I feel the difference. I really feel the difference. So you guys are going to be having a school. You're going to actually physically have people attend?
Yeah. So we have the online school, gravitybodyacademy.com. And if you use code GBA Betty, then you save money. Anyhow, so we started that, and that's online. But then if you want a physical presence, then on March 4th, we're actually holding an event here in Mexico. So if you have your passport, come on down, and you can actually spend time with Gerald and I.
That would be amazing. I'm really going to put that out to the universe because I would love to come.
Oh, we would love to have you. You're definitely invited. VIP.
Oh, thank you. That would be fantastic.
I had to get a sweat. I got cold. So I heard you talk about the school that we're doing in March, and we probably owe people more details.
Yeah, we'll get more.
What we ideally like to happen is to see people do the online course first. And if they have somebody that they can do the structure work with and share so they get a reciprocal experience, like a partner, then I don't think you don't really need to come and be with us. Unless you want to, okay? If you got the experience hands-on that you needed and you passed the testing, boom, we'll put you on the website and promote you as somebody to go visit, okay? And we get a lot of traffic, so we hopefully can help bring clients together with practitioners.
Amazing.
Now, so for those that don't, maybe they got involved with watching the videos, they didn't have somebody to work with, or
they want to experience,
or they got to experience it like you did, but they didn't get to give it and want to be able to do what you experienced, okay? Because there'll come a point where you're like, how could I not share this with other people? You'll see. Anyway, so when they get to if they want to do that and they come down for 5 weeks with us, what we'll do is set it up so that you'll be paired up with another practitioner. So you guys will get to do a 10 series with each other.
Oh, wow.
And receive. I'll have a model that I'm going to put through a 10 series as a demo before you even do that. And you'll have the online course available the whole time you're here. So if you want to go review something, go, oh yeah, I got that now, and take your test, because you can download it and take it online. You can take it online, you can take it on your laptop, whatever, once you have it, okay? Once you complete that, and we know you've got you're qualified, then this is really just a hands-on experience for you to be more comfortable and maybe to see it firsthand with us, ask some questions.
And we'll do yoga together, and
right.
share
We'll probably
meals
take
and
some
stuff.
field trips, and things like that. So there'll be some fun mixed in with it too. It's not going to be all.
And we live in one of the National Geographic says it's one of the nicest climates in the world. So.
Are you guys going to put on like where to stay, like where to different places?
Yeah, and we're trying to secure a huge place so that everyone can stay to have their own room and do one big thing it'd be fun, like a communal thing.
We can have
and then if you don't want to, of course, no pressure.
Yeah, there's plenty of other places to stay around. It's kind of a tourist area.
There's tons of spas,
views of the lake and hotels all around the lake.
Vacation rentals.
So there's short-term housing, which is more expensive. What we're trying to do is put together, like a rental property that's not a hotel, so that we can
cover the
people that want to have a communal experience. It'll cut down the cost for us too, and them.
Right.
That's amazing.
So I think we're targeting to have 24 people the first time. So if that happens, we'll end up doing 2 a week.
And we have our eye on a spot already.
Okay, and we'll probably split it up where Monday and Thursday, a set of practitioners will do the work to each other, and then Tuesday and Thursday, the next set will. But there'll be one demo each time by either Christa and I together or one at a time. Yeah. We'll do body readings with client views so that you can see before and after every single time. And we'll have discussions about that too. So it'll be very pragmatic, hands-on, learn how to use all the tools of the trade. And when you're done, you're ready to start your practice as a Gravity Body Academy certified community minister. And what that means is you're not under licensure requirement to go get a permit, and it changes your taxation status as well.
Wow.
So we do that because right now the pathway is not easy for someone to get into the main structure schools in the United States. And I'm only speaking for the United States right now. The cost is about $22,000. But in order to do that, and we're talking probably 18 to 24 weeks, just to learn a process of 10,
plus
okay?
Travel and board.
So you got to travel there, you got to pay for your housing, your food, and all that on top of that, okay?
And I think you have to be a massage therapist first.
This is a new change. So this was not in place in 2003 when I went to the school, okay? And it's under different management now, okay? The school I went to was kind of a hippie school in Boulder. There weren't lawyers involved with branding and all this other junk, okay? It was just about the work. And anyway, to get into those schools, the prerequisite is you have to be under licensure, meaning you're a licensed massage therapist. They don't take you unless you're a licensed massage therapist first. Okay. Well, you know what that costs to go to a licensed massage therapist school? Average is around $8,000 to $10,000, and you're talking another big chunk of time. So they've made it very hard to get access to this work. So the fact that we made it the first one online, and we're certifying people to circumvent all the red tape that's been put in place. Listen, insurance doesn't accept structural integration, but it accepts massage. Why?
That's silly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It accepts chiropractic and massage, but not structural integration. Why? Because structural integration is powerful and it changes people.
But wouldn't you say it was a great investment, Betty?
So
yes.
far, so good?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. And you know what? When I put it out there, the money came. And also because I know her and what I do, I bartered a little bit with her for some of my services.
And a lot of people will do that.
Well, I have to say, California and New York are two of the most expensive places to get structural integration work. As an example, it was minimally $120 per session in California.
It's 125 here. It was 125 per session.
Just so people know,
Right.
Well, add up 10 sessions, you're over $1,000. We're charging that for the school. So the cost of an online course is what you're going to pay to get the work. So this is ridiculous compared to $8,000 to $10,000 under licensure LMT as a prerequisite. Now add 20. You're talking over $30,000 to get an education as a structural integrator. That's too much.
It's
too much.
But from you, I feel like you're getting way more because of who you are, your background. You were an engineer, and all this other stuff that you have. I feel like coming from the both of you, it's supercharged even more than it would be from another school. It has to be, just from the consciousness. Well,
Christa didn't learn structural integration the standard way either. You want to talk about how you got started with it? She's got quite a story too, actually.
When we went and got married, then we went and we stayed on my parents' property and we did the work with them and we traded. So we gave them, like, he would do one session and then I would take all the notes and write down everything I saw. And I was in the middle of like my anatomy coloring book. And so I didn't know all the terms. So it's like, he's pulling underneath the shoulder now. And it's however you can convey it. So that's how I conveyed it to me. And then after he was done, then I would give the session to the next person. And then I think I would get it, and then he would give it, and then I would give it. And so it went like that. And then from there, then we traveled in a trailer and went to Arkansas and gave the work. And then I actually started seeing clients, and I would read all my notes before I went, and his notes, and practice and prepare, and then go and do it. And eventually you just get more confident and comfortable, just like anything else in life.
Do you ever get any like visions or downloads or inspiration, like when you're working on somebody? Do you ever see anything? Do you share that with them?
Yeah, and not like a hemisync, but it's almost like you sync with that person's energy in a way. Ida says the practitioner sinks in within the first 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, and then the client will sink in with the practitioner shortly thereafter, depending on who they are. It could be right away too.
When my lady did it, when she did the one session where you do the sacral, where she started working like on my sacral.
Session 6, yeah.
Yeah, she got a peacock.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah.
Well, then I came home and of course I started researching it, and it was really
an animal.
Yeah, it was a sea animal, and it was I was like, wow, that was pretty I was definitely excited. It didn't sound terrible. It sounded wonderful. But I thought it was amazing to get that, and I bet now are you guys different? Is he more scientific and you're more spirit? Like, Gerald, do you get visions when you work with people, or downloads, or
it's funny, when I first started the work, like anyone else, it kind of felt like a recipe, and I was not inclined to put my hands on another person as a massage or like anything like that. Usually it was in the ring in combat. That's what I liked. Okay, so the idea of doing this work was so foreign to me as an engineer, let me tell you. I left the high-speed tech world of startup companies that were doing disruptive things that were 10 years ahead of their time, kind of thing, to all of a sudden talking about putting my hands on people and connecting them to their structure and their energy. It was I only wanted to learn the work to give it to my kid. That's really all I did it for. But in that process, of course, I had to go through and have a partner, just like what we described, to share the work. And I have to tell you, the story is, I had an amazing set of hurdles to me actually doing this work. Like I said, let me back up. So my kid had a structural problem with his genetic disorder, and I realized it was helping me, and I wanted to learn how to do this to help my kid, who was still in braces trying to learn to walk. Okay, but I saw that Ida Rolf had a kid who had polio. She did the same thing, found the solution for her kid, and it turned out to be this work.
Wow.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what started. And she was a medical student at on the East Coast. I want to say UMass Amherst or somewhere in that region. Okay, I can't remember, but she was studying to be a medical student. Well, and then she had this kid and had, started looking for solutions for him. Well, it turns out it was interesting. She tried all these different things. What changes the human body? What is it? Is it? And she looked around to try to figure this out. She saw that, in the birth process, the body would change on a woman, and the abdominal region would get very different shaped. Okay, and then for the most part, except for exterior skin stretching and things like that, it would go back to the same size it was after the birth, after some time. The body is malleable plastic. Okay. And she started looking, was it because of yoga? So she studied with a yoga teacher, okay, to try to figure this out. And she got pretty far, I guess. Conceptually, I think she got pretty far. And then she ended up in Germany, where they were doing this work under an old style osteopath. And the old osteopaths, before they became medical doctors like they are now, they shared the same assumptions about the body that structural integrators do today. Very interesting. I'm trying to think of a guy who was an osteopath for 6 years, or 60 years, that I read his book. And he talked about a lot of the same principles that we were doing. And he expounded on some of the energy fields in the body that even the structural integrators don't talk about that much. So anyway, through that process, somehow I had to be partnered up with somebody in the school to become a practitioner, like we're talking about in this 5 weeks course we're doing. Okay. And I didn't really get to choose, and I had somebody who wasn't on my frequency that, and I'm not going to say any names or anything, but, and it's not uncommon to run across people that have certain skin ailments, okay, that may not be contagious, but visually it's like, wow, that's really scary, okay, if you know what I'm saying. My partner had that, okay, so I was like, wow, and I was like freaked out. I didn't know anything about contraindications, whether this is contagious, all that. I was freaked out. I didn't even know what it was, and I was like, I can't do this. And
you didn't do it?
I just can't do this. Well, I actually had an ego complete breakdown at this point, and I was off in a waterfall by myself, going, why am I doing this? If this is what I have to do to help my kid, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it. I finally got out of my own way, but I was truly ready to turn and go the other way. I was like, okay, I understand the concepts enough. I can go do this to my kid. I don't need this, right? But I went through with it, and I had very profound energy changes all through the course. I had visions that were just, I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. I had acoustic sensations while I was in some of the canyons. It almost felt like sound was being amplified, and I was in some sort of sound vortex at places. I was like, wow, am I in my body? Am I out of my body? Of course, I was in Kauai learning this work on a very mystical property.
Oh, wow.
It was called Kahuna Springs, where the kahunas used to go to this very large property that had waterfalls draining into it that created springs that they would go heal themselves. And some of them had therapeutic effects, okay? So this is where I learned to do structure work. So it was crazy, but
that's amazing.
And I started to see the connection between the energetic connection between the practitioner and the client. It had a lot to do with your sensation of the change rate at which their sympathetic nervous system could detect what you were doing.
I was gonna say,
go ahead, yeah.
I was just gonna say, when you feel it changing, sometimes, like, as a practitioner, you'll feel it. You don't have to go away. Okay. Smell bad? No. No.
It's gonna open the door again.
But I was gonna say, like, if you when you're doing the work, you can feel it almost like you'll get a burning sensation, or you'll feel it like it'll get hot. You'll feel the energy change, and I'll ask, like, was that an injury point, or did something happen there? Are you feeling that? And often they feel it too, and it's wow. Yeah. So you can actually feel their fascia when you tune in and tap in. You can feel it changing, and could you feel it changing when she was doing the work?
Yes. Yes, I feel a difference. And one of the most major physical ones, like I said, it was down my right leg. And she said, she asked me when she was doing, she goes, did you have a cesarean section when you had your daughter? And I said, yeah, how do you know? And she said, oh, you have, she said it was common. I don't know if you ever come across that, but it was like a strip almost that went down from my like hip down my leg. And she worked on it and I felt it moving. I felt it. And then the next couple of days, it didn't feel good at all. And I was kind of thinking, is this a good idea? What am I doing? What have I done? Now I'm in pain. This isn't good. And but then it worked itself out and I feel great. So I guess it just needed, I don't know what it was about, but yeah, I definitely felt a major change.
Well, and different things will change in your body throughout. Even when you're done, you'll feel all of a sudden maybe your lumbars or your stomach or something will hurt or feel something, and something's changing, or maybe your shoulder or your knee or different things. And usually it's one thing at a time because that's all you can handle or pay attention to. But then it'll change, and maybe it might be uncomfortable going through it, but then it lets go and it gets better.
For you though, because you are so flexible, were you always, like, honestly, were you always kind of flexible like that, or did this really make a big difference? Because when I see you do yoga, I'm like, is she a rubber band? You're like Gumby. Like,
it does make a big difference. It does make a big difference, because if you're holding behind if your IT band or your hamstrings are stuck in right at your rotators, and then all of a sudden that becomes loose, or even Ida said, if you get more length in your occipits, then your hamstrings become more flexible. Who knew? So there's a big mapping in your body on how it's all connected, and it really does make a big difference. I was into like dance and flexibility, Pilates and different things like that for a long time before too, though.
Okay.
Yeah, it works on guys too. It makes you more flexible.
He's just as flexible.
So if you mix in movement repatterning with the stirred up fascia, and we always include that, okay?
And we're making some.
It's very important to include. You're doing yoga, so you're already doing something. And let's talk about that. Okay. Tension, pressure, temperature, and frequency have the ability to change the state, the malleability of your connective tissue, your fascia. The Rolf practitioner, the structural integrator, uses the elbow, the hand to apply pressure and tension simultaneously, normally. Okay, that's what they're doing. And they're trying to do it at a rate and a pressure. Listen, we'll talk about rate separately. But they're trying to do it at a pressure and a tension level. Tension is stretching. That's what you get in yoga, right? By playing around the gravity field, you put yourself in a place where this is tense. I play with it, and pretty soon it's not as tense anymore, right? That's because tension changes the state of connective tissue. Okay. So now you add pressure with that, applied pressure based on the circumference of whatever tool you're using, your whole forearm or the tip of your elbow, your palmar fascia. There's lots of different ways, your knuckles. Okay, there's lots of different tools in the body that we use. We don't use rocks and sticks anymore. They used to. We used to call them samurai rolfers. Serious.
You would push
they would use any implement. Instead of using their hand or their arm, they might use a stick or a rock.
Oh.
We do stuff like that for ourselves.
That's you can do that for yourself because you have the sympathetic nervous system to feel what you're doing to yourself. If you're using a tool against somebody else, you're not connected to their fascia, and you cannot feel the pressure and tension that's proper. You could do it if the person talked to you said, okay, that's about a 6 right there, but if you go any farther, I'm going to take that stick away and whack you with it. Right. Like that. So it's much better to use your own tools, your body, and we don't encourage using any tools.
Well, what about like crystals and their frequency? Would that make a difference? You can use those.
Just don't put them in your hand and rub them down somebody's fascia, okay? That would really hurt. So what you probably don't know is you're just now doing your first 10 series. For a year from now, you'll keep getting changes.
Oh, wow.
And the degree with which you're doing movement repatterning, okay, this is important. Because what happens is when you move, especially slow motion, like Tai Chi or yoga done slowly, when you move slowly, you're moving at a rate that your nervous system can detect the tension and the pressure at your joints and such, so that it can integrate it. What does that mean? It means to start to relate how you distribute weight through your body to where the gravity field is. And when you find that place, all of a sudden standing is balanced. Any activity can be balanced if you figure out where that place is. So the movement repatterning helps you retrain your sympathetic nervous system to take control of the damaged tissue that got woke up when the structure integrator was putting the tension and the pressure on it with their body, so that you now can play the gravity game. And when gravity realizes through your nervous system that you own that connective tissue, it creates a span. And this can't be described to somebody, a feeling such that you're in control from the back of your head down to the bottom of your foot. So whatever you're doing from your core, which then involves your extrinsic muscles as a secondary response. But your core is now aligned with the gravity field, and everything is easier. So you've now found a relationship where you're not at war with gravity anymore.
I feel grounded. I never did before. I honestly can tell you, it was always a struggle for me. I've always been kind of in outer space a bit, you know, and I feel connected. When I go outside, I feel heavier on the ground. And my integrator, my structural integrator, told me she sees the downward. She said she always saw the upward in me, but now, and I feel it. It's incredible.
Yeah. It only gets better.
Yeah.
Now listen, if you have pain in your IT band and it was going down your leg, I want to say that little pains like that are going to show up out of nowhere.
Yep.
As you adapt to the gravity field, it might show up here, and your body's really clever. Your awareness system through the reticular activating system will only let you be aware of one, maybe two things at once. If it was aware of everything happening simultaneously, it would overwhelm you, your sense that you couldn't handle it.
Okay.
So what it'll do is it'll bring your awareness to a place that might feel like pain that's going on suddenly that wasn't there before, right? The structural integrator did it to me, right? No, you did it to yourself. You just did it a long time ago. Now it's coming out. So it's going to move around, okay? And there's no reason to chase it, okay? Just keep playing the gravity game, and gravity is the therapist that will find the way for your body to distribute its weight so that that no longer is a tension point, a problem, okay?
I was just going to add gravity game. I hear him say, like, play the gravity game a lot, but then maybe you're wondering, what is the gravity game? And so it's some things you can do, things he's told me, basically, I'll just convey back, is put your imagine your ear is over your shoulder's in line with your hip's in line with your knee, and you're kind of, that's one way to play the gravity game. So instead of maybe when you go to get something out of the cupboard in the kitchen, instead of bending over to get it, then you can keep that line and maybe squat down and keep a straight spine and get it, or play different things like that. Another one is he had you pretend your kneecaps are headlights. And so you want to keep your headlights pointing forward. You don't want them going all over the place. And so you keep you keep your knees pointing forward. Another one is to get rid of this is a hard one for women, but pumps and boots and high heels and all these other things. But to go to more of a flat base shoe, we use Vibrams or Vibrams a lot, and they're not maybe the most fashionable thing in the world. You will it's a conversation starter. But something where you can come more in contact with the earth to be more grounded, the more barefoot-like footwear you can have. Another thing he was going to say is cushions. So we don't use a couch. Every now and then I will for a video to make me look like I do, but I don't. We don't.
I heard you guys say that. I was like, wow, you guys are really, you live it.
Well, before you do any more, can I talk about those?
Yeah.
Each one of those has a reason why we do that. For one thing, turn sideways so they can see your ear relative to your shoulder just for a second. Well, okay. Well, the head weighs about 15 pounds. It weighs almost as much as most people's bowling balls, they go bowling with. So think about that. And it's concentrated in very much the same kind of diameter. So it weighs a lot. And Ida Rolf used to say, I can do all this stuff and change everything below your head, and give you a great structure to stack your head on. But if you let that head come off of the balance point, guess what? Everything that's attached in your head to your shoulder girdle is going to be strained. Okay, so people that sit like this, the back gets very strained, the shoulders go wide, and the scapulas get pulled up and they rotate anterior. Okay, well, that's because of that bowling ball doing what it's doing. So the gravity game for the head is to keep that bowling ball from destroying the structure that you just stacked underneath it, to stack it on. Okay, that's number one. What was the second? The vibrams. Let's talk about the knees and the headlights first. If you can walk with your knees pointed forward, assuming your patellas are not glued, aberrated way, that you've had some structure work, what happens is the way your legs fit into your pelvis forms what we call the axis of symmetry, the horizontal axis of symmetry, right through where your leg joins into the pelvis. If your feet are rotating out, everted or inverted, you're straining that joint in your pelvis. We call it the os coxa. That's half your pelvis, okay? Or the glenoid fossa is up in here, but I can't remember what the name is right now. But anyway, that joint is a ball joint, okay, where your leg fits into your pelvis. And if there's any deviation in there at all, and they're not horizontal, one's higher than the other because of a rotation in your knee that's collapsing on the other side, generally people's bones are not different lengths. Even though they go, look, I got one leg longer than the other one. Well, it's usually because of a rotation.
Okay.
It's the feet. And so whatever happens to the feet is going to travel up to the knee, is going to travel all the way up to where your leg connects in your pelvis. Okay? It's just a known fact. It's just how gravity works in your body. And when you distribute things, it's like a pile of stacked rocks, right? Suppose you took 7 rocks and stacked them up in, and they're different sizes or whatever, and maybe different shapes. So you got to balance them. We got a fly visiting us here. And we treat the body like this, okay? If you mess around with a rock anywhere down below in that stack, you've got to alter this where they're stacked on top of it because the gravity point changed. Otherwise, the rocks will fall over, right? Your body is very much like that. And your head is the last rock on top of that stack, okay? So it's very important that it's used as a reference point for what's vertical. And speaking of that, there are sensors, Christa mentioned, in your occipits in the back of your head that detect the center of gravity in the bowl of your pelvis while you're standing, okay? And the reason it does that is because that's where that core line, where gravity comes through the top of your head and goes through the urogenital triangle of your pelvis, that's where it detects it. So it's using the topmost point of your bridge of your body, which is shaped like a bridge with rubber bands and popsicle sticks, holding it up. So the top of it is up here, and then the bottom is sensing down in your pelvis. Well, why does it do that? It does that in order to establish a frame of reference to orient the rest of your body relative to that, especially the knees and the elbow. Okay, so we were talking about the connection between the proprioceptors on the back of your occipits, which is the back of your head, with your knees and your elbows. And through that proprioception, you're able to position your 3D rubber band and popsicle stick body in the gravity field. That's what it's for. So if your head is not sensing the right place in your pelvis, then your head will be displaced the same amount as your pelvis is in the opposite direction. So generally the pattern is most people's pelvis has an anterior tilt. And that's because the tissue on the back of their pelvis is too tight where it joins with their lower back, okay? And because of that, the head generally tilts slightly backward to compensate for that forward tilt. And you'll see that if you ask somebody to look at what's level, they'll do it, but they'll have this strange shape. They won't have length in the back of their neck because of that, okay? That's what causes that. So anyway, the whole system, your visual system in connection with your proprioceptive and your sensors and your elbows and knees work with your connective tissue, your fascia, and your fascia communicates over your whole body in order to allow your structure to orient itself in 3D space. So when you're doing yoga and all that kind of stuff, think about all that stuff being involved. Your sense of balance comes from your connection in your pelvis through the back of your head. So when you're doing yoga, play with that sometimes. And the other, so we went to the trochanters and talked about your axis of symmetry. relative to the structure. Then she talked about the feet. We generally like to see people find their arches with their feet, and you have 3 arches in your feet, and your feet are designed to work without shoes. You weren't born with shoes on, okay? But if you're wearing a shoe that's changing your arch shape or filling in an arch artificially, then your arches aren't working correctly. And the arches are like leaf springs on the car, except they're upside down. And they are formed to distribute the weight from your body down through your feet, which should feel like a bag of bones when they're correctly structured, by the way. The feet should not be stiff at all. And that means when the bag of bones is relaxed and you're not moving, you don't really need the distribution of the arch per se, and it'll flatten out. When you pick your foot up and plop it back down on the ground like she does in the video while she's walking, she's letting her arch form, distribute the weight, and then gradually it shifts over to the other foot, okay? And if that's done in a balanced way, then the pelvis will be moving almost in a figure 8 as we show from the back, as the sacroiliac joint should be free and mobile. And ultimately, what we're after is a free and mobile pelvis, so that gravity point in the pelvis that's being sensed by the proprioceptors is in the right place, and it's always adapting to the ground plane through your feet as you move around. And if you can sense that correctly, you can be a very balanced athlete at pretty much any sport. Okay, so structural integration is very powerful for people that want to go to the next level in their physical performance as well. And actually, that's how it started. This end result of your energy change, your personality, all that stuff was treated as side effects for a long time of the work, and they didn't talk about that much. Okay, but ultimately, for a structural integrator, we want people to know that the goal is, if you can stand in the gravity field, relax completely with the top of your head, feeling that point where gravity comes through right on the top. At that very point, you can have an energy experience that's probably more profound than even sitting. And it has to do with your body being kind of like an antenna, where the lowest polarity is near the ground and the highest polarity is near the top of your head. So you're in your battery model of a human. Structural integrators use that in terms of where your alignments are relative to your positive and negative pole in your electrical body. Okay, so ultimately, if you can do a line, what we call a meditation, where you can stand, breathe in a controlled way, not just let your autonomic system do it, but do it in a way where you can have an energy experience. Mix that with the feeling of the gravity line, and your chakras will light up like you can't even imagine. Okay, this is way beyond just breathing and sitting and going, okay, I got it. When you're using gravity, which is the therapist in structural integration, to align your structure with it, then equation 5A is full on. Okay, that's what it says. It's a summation of all the energy from your chakras mixed with the gravity field, okay, if you look at that equation in both of my books. So gravity is very, very important. It just so happens to overlap with structural integration. Our internet says it's unstable right now, so hopefully you got this. Christa, say one last thing, and then let's close this out so that people can get it. Okay?
Yeah, well, it was great spending time with you today, Betty, and thanks for sharing your wonderful experience, and I can't wait till we get together again.
Thank you so much, and I owe so much of this to both of you.
Did you catch that?
Yes, I did, and I would love to do that. I feel like that's probably the next notch on my journey, but I just want to let you know how much gratitude I have to the both of you for being such beautiful, open souls and for sharing your wisdom.
Welcome to Gravity Body Academy. On behalf of the founders, Gerald and Christa Clark, the purpose of this short video trailer is to give the students a quick overview of the GBA course material. As you can see from the multimedia video clips, cutting-edge use of teaching aids like a 3D layered human anatomy model and animation distinguishes our anatomy course like none other. In addition to the 3D models, detailed explanations and data are combined with extensive graphical aids to facilitate an optimal learning experience for the student. All videos are available 24 hours a day at 1080p HD resolution. The feeling that arises after exposure to the course material, according to many students, is that of being able to visualize the internal workings of the body, which for a structural integrator is a priceless perspective from which to work with clients and their unique fascial patterns. Some would call it X-ray vision.
The GBA Anatomy prerequisite course material focuses on the musculoskeletal system and the terminology used in the SI field and recognizes and accepts equivalent courses from other massage and bodywork schools. The anatomical information necessary to become a skilled structural integrator is GBA's focus and is covered in detail. Students that have previously paid for 240 hours of anatomy in a classroom will be delighted to see that it can be done with multimedia elements that are superior to a classroom in a far less time, with the added benefit of being able to review the material as many times as needed. Gravity Body Academy recommends using a partner to learn the SI material with, and also practice the techniques together. Additionally, if finances allow, locate and interview a practicing structural integrator to perform the work with you while learning the SI material with or without a partner. The internal experience of receiving SI work creates a personal experience of what changing fascia feels like from an input, response, and result perspective. Experiencing the integration process personally will also make giving the work more intuitive as practitioners learn to hook in to another's sense, process, and response patterns in establishing a pressure, tension, threshold, and movement processing speed that optimizes fascial malleability, which is unique to each client. We work with clients, not on them.
Who says learning online is not possible? The information age is fully upon us, and remote learning is now possible practically anywhere in the world. Consider that even an orphanage in Uganda has access to this advanced material if they have an internet connection, which they do. Imagine the possibilities. How many of the orphans could learn where they are and grow up with a marketable skill, some hope for a better future, and a healing modality to share with their community? Without an online school like Gravity Body Academy, the underprivileged in the world could never afford the current prices being asked for this specialized healing education. This has been Gerald Clark and Christa Clark on behalf of Gravity Body Academy. Thank you for watching. Join us and start a whole new life journey as a GBA certified SI community minister today.